everyone! Welcome to my channel Creepy Narratives. Today, I'm thrilled to share more spine-chilling stories that have actually happened to me and others who have experienced these so-called creepy scenarios. These incidents were so eerie, creepy and strange that they had us questioning the very reality that we knew. So, sit back, relax and prepare to be captivated by the enigma of these creepy narratives. Welcome to my nightmare. I think that you're going to like it. Enjoy. Let's start with story number 1. Story number 1. Desert Camp Mystery. It was a desert camping trip with 4 friends, and the atmosphere was buzzing with a mix of camaraderie and adventure. As the night unfolded, 3 of us females joined my older buddy. We were all in a slightly altered state, celebrating one of the girls' birthdays. The rain was coming down heavily, and as night fell, we retreated to our respective tents. I was starting to drift into sleep when I distinctly heard someone call my name. My eyes snapped open, and I was alert. It wasn't a faint whisper, it was my name, clear and unmistakable. I wondered if one of my friends had called me, but they had all retreated to the camper. So, I assumed it might be a trick of the drugs or my imagination and tried to dismiss it. However, the night had more surprises in store. The 3 girls in the camper grew agitated, and they beckoned me to join them urgently. They were pale-faced and shaken, telling me something was lurking outside the camper. I was skeptical, partly because I thought the drugs might be playing tricks on them, but I couldn't shake their fear. Reluctantly, I agreed to sit with them and listen for any unusual sounds. Minutes passed in silence, with only the raindrops drumming on the camper. But then, a scratching sound emanated from just outside. I figured it could be a tree branch, but they insisted it was something else. So, together, we decided to investigate. With a flashlight in hand, I cautiously opened the door, only to find nothing there. No footprints in the mud, no sign of any intruders, and certainly no tree branches close enough to scratch the camper. It was weird, but I reassured them that we were alone, and they were probably experiencing drug-induced paranoia. Our focus shifted back inside the camper, but that's when we heard a voice. A whisper that seemed to originate from the camper itself, beckoning, "Can you hear me?" It was unmistakably a voice, clear and deliberate. I responded, yes, thinking it might be one of my friends, but they were all accounted for. The girls were in shock, and one of them revealed that she had heard the same voice before, which only deepened our unease. Suddenly, another sound pierced the night, a child's laughter, distinct and eerie. We couldn't place the source, it seemed to come from within the camper. We roused the other 2 friends, thinking they might be playing a prank, but they were genuinely asleep, baffled by our panic. We decided to check our electronic devices, thinking that the sounds might be coming from there. But as we gathered the phones and other gadgets, a loud creaking noise echoed from just outside the front door. The fear escalated. I braced myself and cautiously opened the door again, peering outside into the darkness. But there was nothing there. Back inside, our fear intensified. Then, a soft voice whispered once more, "Please, why won't anyone f***ing help me?" The voice grew more desperate with each repetition, cutting through the night like a knife. We were paralyzed with fear, unable to comprehend what was happening. Desperate to protect my friends, I yelled for my male friend to wake up and bring his guns, convinced that someone was toying with us. But there was no response. It took what felt like an eternity to rouse him, and when he finally did, he was disoriented and annoyed. He reluctantly joined us, but the fear had already consumed us. The night continued, filled with strange sounds, unexplained voices, and an overwhelming sense of dread. We couldn't pinpoint the source of the eerie occurrences. It was a night we would never forget, one that forever left us with unanswered questions and a deep sense of unease. Let's go to story number 2. Story number 2. The Haunting Prank. As the rain pelted our camper in a rhythmic cadence, I couldn't help but feel a growing unease settle in the pit of my stomach. My buddy and I were on a remote camping trip, miles away from civilization, and the dark woods seemed to close in on us as the night deepened. We were both seasoned campers, two grown-ass men who prided ourselves on our ability to handle any wilderness situation. But something about this night felt different, unsettling. I caught my friend up to speed on the strange occurrences that had been plaguing us since we set up camp. Earlier, we had heard giggles and childlike laughter echoing through the woods. At first, we brushed it off, attributing it to the recreational drugs we'd indulged in earlier. My friend, always the skeptic, simply mocked us, insisting it was just our imagination running wild. But I knew, deep down, that it was something more than that. Something real. We decided to stay in the camper, my friend graciously agreeing to crash on the floor with me, prepared to charge into the night if need be. The minutes stretched into an agonizing wait, the silence broken only by the patter of rain against our shelter. We grew weaker, quieter, and fatigue started to creep in. I could feel sleep tugging at the corners of my mind. Then, it happened. The giggles, the damn child's laughter, returned. This time, they were just outside the van. My friend, ever the cynic, believed it was one of the neighboring girls playing a prank on us. He urged us to go to sleep, insisting it was their doing, even though they vehemently denied it. But as soon as my friend settled back down, no more than 10 seconds passed before an unmistakable, bone-chilling noise echoed through the night, a loud creak, followed by the eerie sound of scratching against metal. It was as if someone was right outside, taunting us. My heart pounded as my friend shot up, his face mirroring the terror etched on our faces. "We told you so," he said, his voice a mixture of fear and frustration. With resolute determination, he rushed out of the camper, disappearing into the darkness and rain. We huddled inside, listening to his frantic yells, his footsteps pounding on the wet forest floor. It felt like an eternity, but he eventually returned, drenched and disheveled. His report sent shivers down our spines. There was no one out there. We began to talk amongst ourselves, the tension hanging thick in the air. The possibility of the campground being haunted, or perhaps built upon ancient burial grounds, began to creep into our conversation. Fear and uncertainty fueled our jabbering, but we all agreed to stay awake until the morning, when the sun would rise, the rain would dry up, and we could pack up and leave this eerie place behind. It was as I pumped gas in a local town later that morning that a sudden thought struck me. I googled the haunting sounds we'd heard, those giggles and eerie noises. What I discovered sent a chill down my spine, the Eviltron, a sinister electronic device designed to emit creepy sounds. To my astonishment, it turned out that my weird friend had hidden it underneath the whippet canister belonging to the neighboring girls. In fact, it wasn't even their canister, it was his, and they had swiped it from his tent while he slept. But he was the real mastermind. He had anticipated their mischief and cunningly tricked them into bringing the device into their camper, turning the tables on them like a Trojan horse. I had been collateral damage in his twisted prank, and he had reveled in his role as the silent puppeteer, chuckling to himself in the shadows. The fallout between him and the girls was severe, but I couldn't help but applaud his ingenious prank, even though it had left us all petrified. To this day, I can't help but say, bravo. Are you ready for story number 3? Story number 3. The Enigmatic Wolf Encounter. The northern woods of British Columbia, Canada, had always held a special place in my heart. It was there, while working at an oil rig camp in the remote wilderness, that I experienced an encounter that would haunt my memory forever. One chilly afternoon, I stepped out onto the back deck of the camp's quarters. The time was around 2 o'clock, and the snow was falling gently, transforming the landscape into a serene, white wonderland. It was one of those moments when the world seems to move in slow motion, every detail etched in crystalline clarity. As I stood there, savoring the solitude and the beauty of the wild, I suddenly felt an inexplicable presence. It was as if an unseen force had descended upon me. Slowly, my gaze shifted from the vast expanse of the snowy landscape to the forest's edge, roughly 30 feet away. And there it was, an enormous wolf, the likes of which I had never seen before. It sat majestically between two towering trees, its sheer size enough to make my heart race. I locked eyes with the creature, and for a fleeting moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. In that eerie silence, we communicated in a wordless exchange. It was as if the wolf was saying, "I see you, human. I could overpower you if I wanted to, but I won't." It was a chilling acknowledgement of our coexistence. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the colossal wolf vanished into the depths of the forest. The encounter left me shaken, questioning the boundaries between man and nature. It was an experience that would forever remind me of the wild's unfathomable mysteries. Let's continue with story number 4. Story number 4. The Echoes of the Wilderness. Our family had a tradition of escaping to a remote cabin in the wilderness several times a year. These journeys were our escape from the hustle and bustle of city life, a chance to reconnect with nature and each other. On this particular trip, however, we would encounter something inexplicable. We had arrived at our cabin, nestled deep in the heart of the wilderness. My wife, our 3 young children, and our 2 faithful dogs were all eager for the adventure that awaited us. As the day turned into evening, we reveled in the tranquility of our surroundings, surrounded by towering trees and the serene sounds of nature. On one sunny afternoon, I decided to embark on a solo hike into the woods, leaving my family behind at the cabin. The path I took led me deep into the heart of the forest, and I relished the peace and solitude. But then, as if summoned by the enchantment of the woods, I heard something that would forever etch itself into my memory. It was the unmistakable sound of my children arguing, playing, crying, laughing, echoing through the forest. It was as if they were calling out to me, beckoning me to join them. My first instinct was to rush toward the voices, to embrace the warmth of my family's presence in the heart of this wilderness. But something stopped me. A nagging feeling, a whisper of doubt, crept into my mind. My family was back at the cabin, and they couldn't possibly be out here in the woods. Reluctantly, I turned away from the voices, choosing instead to continue my solitary hike. The forest, however, had other plans. The sounds persisted, a cacophony of emotions echoing through the trees, mimicking my loved ones' voices with an uncanny accuracy. It was as if the very wilderness itself had come alive, weaving an intricate tapestry of sound to beckon me deeper into its heart. To this day, I can't explain what I heard or why it happened. It remains an enigmatic chapter in our family's wilderness adventures, a reminder that the natural world holds mysteries beyond our comprehension. Are you ready for story number 5? Story number 5. The Whispering Night. My brother and I shared a bond forged in the crucible of countless wilderness adventures. From building forts and BMX tracks to LARPing and hunting, we had traversed the length and breadth of the United States, exploring the hidden wonders of nature. But one trip in 2019 would leave an indelible stain on our memories. We found ourselves in a vast, remote forested area, far removed from civilization, surrounded by untamed wilderness. It was my 5th time hunting in the region, and this time, I had convinced my brother to join me. We were in our mid-20s, confident in our skills and prepared for whatever challenges the wild had in store. We drove deep into the heart of the forest, our truck navigating rugged trails that seemed to stretch on forever. The nearest main road was a distant memory, at least 8 to 10 miles away. With our tents set up a couple of miles from the truck, we were as isolated as could be. The first day passed uneventfully. We scouted the area, tracked game, and returned to camp in high spirits. As the night descended, we cooked our meal, enjoyed a few beers, and exchanged stories by the campfire. It was a typical evening in the wild, nothing out of the ordinary. But then, as the night deepened and the world around us plunged into darkness, I was jolted awake by a sensation I couldn't ignore. Something was wrong. I could hear the rain tapping against our tent, the sound oddly comforting. But there was another noise, something that didn't belong. My brother's voice cut through the darkness, calling my name urgently. Panic seized me as I replied, my voice a whisper, "What's wrong?" He unzipped my tent and crawled inside, his eyes wide with terror. The night was far from over, and what we heard next defied explanation. It was a sound like none other, a bizarre symphony that seemed to emanate from the very fabric of the forest. Whale sounds, we called them later, but that didn't do justice to the unearthly quality of the noise. The tones ranged from high-pitched squeals that pierced our eardrums to deep, rumbling vibrations that resonated through the ground beneath us. There were no patterns, no rhythms, just an unpredictable cacophony of sound that left us paralyzed with fear. We sat there in our tent, unable to move, unable to comprehend what we were experiencing. It went on for what felt like an eternity, the eerie sounds echoing through the night, seeping into our souls. It was as if the very essence of the forest had awoken, and we were mere spectators to its mysterious performance. As dawn began to break, the sounds ceased abruptly, leaving us in an eerie silence. But the tranquility was short-lived. The skies unleashed a torrential thunderstorm, drenching us and our campsite. When we finally emerged from our tents, we were greeted by a scene of chaos. All the stakes that held our gear and tents in place had been ripped from the ground. It would have taken an incredible force to dislodge them. My brother dismissed it as machinery or perhaps wild animals, but I couldn't shake the feeling that what we had experienced that night was something beyond our comprehension. It was an encounter with the unknown, a whispering night in the wilderness that left us with more questions than answers, a lingering stain on our memory that refused to fade.